The cemetery was quiet, save for the soft rustling of leaves in the cold autumn breeze. The billionaire, Alexander Grant, stood alone under the shadow of a weeping willow tree. His black coat flapped gently in the wind as he knelt before the small, polished headstone. The name etched on it read, "Emily Grant, beloved daughter, forever in our hearts." It had been 5 years since she passed away, but the pain still felt as fresh as the day he lost her. Alexander placed a single white rose on the grave, his hands trembling. He had everything money could buy: luxury cars, sprawling mansions, and a business empire that spanned the globe. But none of it could fill the void left by his daughter. Emily had been his world, his reason to smile. Her laughter had been the music of his life, and her absence had turned his heart into a barren wasteland. As he stood to leave, a faint sound caught his attention. It was the sound of a child's voice, soft and hesitant. Alexander turned and saw a young boy, no older than 10, sitting on a bench a few feet away. The boy was thin, his clothes worn and too big for his small frame. His eyes were fixed on Emily's grave, and tears streamed down his cheeks. Alexander hesitated. He wasn't used to interacting with strangers, especially children. But something about the boy's sorrow drew him in. He walked over and sat down on the bench, keeping a respectful distance. "Are you okay?" Alexander asked, his voice gentle but unsure. The boy sniffled and wiped his face with his sleeve. I come here sometimes," he whispered, "to talk to my mom. She's buried over there." He pointed to a modest grave a few rows away. Alexander's heart ached. He knew the pain of losing someone you loved. "What's your name?" he asked. "Liam," the boy replied, his voice barely audible. "I'm Alexander," the billionaire said, extending his hand. Liam shook it timidly, his small hand cold and rough. For a moment they sat in silence, the weight of their shared grief hanging heavy in the air. Then Liam spoke again. "Do you think they can hear us when we talk to them?" Alexander looked at Emily's grave, his throat tightening. "I hope so," he said softly. "I really hope so." The boy nodded as if that was the answer he needed. He stood up, brushing dirt off his pants. "I should go," he said. "My dad's probably waiting for me." Alexander watched as Liam walked away, his small figure disappearing into the distance. Something about the boy stayed with him, a strange sense of connection he couldn't explain. Little did he know this chance encounter would change his life forever. The next day, Alexander found himself thinking about Liam. The boy's tear-streaked face and quiet sorrow lingered in his mind. He couldn't shake the feeling that their meeting was more than just a coincidence. Determined to learn more about the boy, Alexander decided to visit the cemetery again, hoping to see him. As he approached the weeping willow, he spotted Liam sitting on the same bench, his small frame hunched over. This time, the boy was holding a tattered notebook, scribbling something with a pencil. Alexander hesitated for a moment before walking over. "Hello again, Liam," he said, sitting down beside him. Liam looked up, startled, but his expression softened when he recognized Alexander. "Hi," he replied quietly. "What are you writing?" Alexander asked, nodding toward the notebook. Liam hesitated, then handed it over. The pages were filled with drawings, simple but heartfelt sketches of a woman with a kind smile. "It's my mom," Liam explained. "I don't have any photos of her, so I try to draw her from memory. But I'm not very good at it." Alexander's chest tightened as he flipped through the pages. The drawings were rough, but the love behind them was unmistakable. "They're beautiful," he said sincerely. "Your mom would be proud." Liam gave a small, sad smile. "I miss her a lot. She used to tell me stories before bed. Now it's just quiet." Alexander felt a pang of guilt. He had been so consumed by his own grief that he hadn't considered how others might be suffering too. "Where's your dad?" he asked gently. Liam's expression darkened. "He's not around much. He works all the time, and when he's home, he's too tired to talk. Sometimes he gets angry, and I just stay in my room." Alexander's heart ached for the boy. He knew what it was like to feel alone, to carry the weight of loss without anyone to share it with. "Do you have anyone else, grandparents, aunts, or uncles?" Liam shook his head. It's just me and my dad. But it's okay. I'm used to it. The words hit Alexander like a punch to the gut. No child should have to feel that way. He made a decision then and there. He would help Liam, even if it was just by being someone the boy could talk to. Would you like to get some hot chocolate? Alexander asked, trying to lighten the mood. There's a cafe nearby, my treat. Liam's eyes widened in surprise. Really? Really? Alexander said with a smile. Come on, it's getting cold out here. As they walked to the cafe, Alexander couldn't help but notice how small and fragile Liam seemed. The boy's clothes were threadbare and his shoes were falling apart. It was clear that life hadn't been kind to him. But despite everything, there was a resilience in Liam's eyes, a spark of hope that hadn't been extinguished. Over steaming cups of hot chocolate, Alexander listened as Liam talked about his mom, his favorite books, and his dreams of becoming an artist one day. For the first time in years, Alexander felt a flicker of warmth in his chest. It was as if Liam's presence had breathed life into his hollow heart. But as they parted ways that afternoon, Alexander couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Liam's story, something the boy wasn't telling him, and he was determined to find out what it was. Over the next few weeks, Alexander and Liam's meetings became a regular occurrence. They would sit by Emily's grave, talk about their lives, and share stories of the people they had lost. Alexander found himself looking forward to these moments, as if Liam's presence was slowly mending the cracks in his heart. One afternoon, as they sat under the weeping willow, Liam seemed quieter than usual. He fidgeted with the hem of his jacket, his eyes downcast. Alexander noticed the change immediately. Is something wrong, Liam? He asked gently. Liam hesitated, then shook his head. It's nothing. Alexander wasn't convinced. You can tell me, you know. Whatever it is, I'm here to listen. The boy bit his lip, his small hands clenched into fists. It's my dad, he finally admitted. He lost his job last week. He's been really angry, and he says we might have to move soon. I don't want to leave. This is where my mom is. Alexander's heart sank. He knew how much the cemetery meant to Liam. It was the only place where he felt close to his mother. The thought of the boy being uprooted from that comfort was unbearable. Where would you go? Alexander asked. Liam shrugged. I don't know. Somewhere far, I guess. Dad says we can't afford to stay here anymore. Alexander's mind raced. He couldn't let this happen. Liam had already lost so much. He didn't deserve to lose the one place that brought him solace, but he also knew he couldn't interfere without understanding the full picture. Liam, he said carefully, has your dad always been like this? Angry, I mean. The boy looked away, his voice barely a whisper. Not always. He used to be different, but after Mom died, he changed. He started drinking, and he gets mad a lot. Sometimes I think he blames me for what happened. Alexander's stomach churned. Why would he blame you? Liam's eyes filled with tears. Because I was there when she got sick. I was the one who found her that day. I tried to help, but I was too little. I couldn't save her. Alexander felt a surge of protectiveness. He reached out and placed a hand on Liam's shoulder. Listen to me, Liam. What happened to your mom wasn't your fault. You were just a child. You did the best you could. The boy looked up at him, his eyes searching for reassurance. Do you really think so? I know so, Alexander said firmly. And your dad? He's hurting too. Sometimes when people are in pain, they don't know how to handle it. That doesn't make it okay, but it might explain why he's acting the way he is. Liam nodded slowly, but the sadness in his eyes remained. I just wish things could go back to the way they were. Alexander sighed. He wished the same, for both of them. But he knew they couldn't change the past. All they could do was try to make the present a little better. Liam, he said after a moment, would it be okay if I met your dad? Maybe I can talk to him, see if there's a way to help. The boy's eyes widened in alarm. No, he wouldn't like that. He doesn't like strangers. Alexander frowned. I just want to help, Liam. I promise I won't make things worse. But Liam shook his head vehemently. Please don't. He'll get mad if he finds out I've been talking to you. He doesn't like people knowing about our problems. Alexander hesitated. He didn't want to push Liam, but he also couldn't stand by and do nothing. "All right," he said finally. "I won't do anything without your permission, but if you ever need help, any kind of help, you know where to find me, okay?" Liam nodded, though he still looked uneasy. "Okay." As they parted ways that day, Alexander couldn't shake the feeling of unease. There was more to Liam's situation than the boy was letting on, and Alexander was determined to uncover the truth, no matter what it took. Alexander couldn't stop thinking about Liam's situation. The boy's fear of his father and the mention of financial struggles gnawed at him. He decided to do some discreet digging, not to invade Liam's privacy, but to understand how he could help without making things worse. He hired a private investigator to look into Liam's family background. What he discovered shocked him to his core. Liam's father, Thomas Carter, had once been a successful engineer. But after the death of his wife Sarah, he had spiraled into depression and alcoholism. He lost his job, and the family's savings dwindled. Thomas had become increasingly volatile, and there were reports of erratic behavior and even minor altercations with neighbors. The investigator also found that Child Protective Services had been called to the home twice, but no action had been taken due to lack of evidence. Alexander's heart sank as he read the report. Liam was living in a precarious situation, and it was only a matter of time before things escalated. He knew he had to act, but he also knew he had to tread carefully. The last thing he wanted was to make things worse for Liam. The next time he met Liam at the cemetery, he decided to broach the subject gently. "Liam," he began, "I've been thinking a lot about what you told me. About your dad and everything. I want to help, but I need you to trust me." Liam looked at him warily. "What do you mean?" "I mean," Alexander said carefully, "that I have resources, people who can help your dad get back on his feet, maybe find him a job or get him some counseling. But I can't do anything without your permission." Liam's eyes widened. "You'd do that for us?" "Of course," Alexander said. "You're important to me, Liam. I don't want to see you suffer." The boy hesitated, his small hands fidgeting with the hem of his jacket. I don't know. What if he gets mad? What if he finds out I told you about him?" Alexander placed a reassuring hand on Liam's shoulder. "I'll make sure he doesn't know it came from you. I'll handle everything discreetly, but I need you to trust me." Liam looked down at his feet, his voice barely a whisper. "I'm scared." "I know," Alexander said softly. "But sometimes we have to take a chance to make things better. I'll be there every step of the way, I promise." After a long moment, Liam nodded. "Okay, but please, be careful." Alexander smiled, though his heart was heavy. "I will. You have my word." Alexander knew he had to approach Thomas Carter carefully. He didn't want to come across as intrusive or condescending, but he also couldn't stand by and watch Liam suffer. After much thought, he decided to visit Thomas under the guise of a business proposition. He found Thomas at a local bar, sitting alone at a corner table with a half-empty glass of whiskey in front of him. The man looked worn out, his face lined with exhaustion and despair. Alexander took a deep breath and approached him. "Thomas Carter?" he asked, extending his hand. "I'm Alexander Grant. I was wondering if I could have a moment of your time." Thomas looked up, his eyes narrowing. "Do I know you?" "No, but I've heard about your work." Alexander lied smoothly. "I'm in need of someone with your expertise for a project I'm working on. I'd like to discuss an opportunity with you." Thomas hesitated, then gestured to the chair across from him. "Have a seat." As they talked, Alexander carefully steered the conversation toward Thomas's struggles. He learned that the man had been drowning in grief and guilt since his wife's death, and his inability to provide for Liam only added to his despair. Alexander offered him a job at one of his companies, along with access to counseling services. Thomas was skeptical at first. "Why would you do this for me? You don't even know me." Alexander chose his words carefully. "I believe in second chances, Thomas. Everyone deserves an opportunity to turn their life around. And from what I've heard, you're a talented man who's been dealt a tough hand. I'd like to help you get back on your feet." Thomas's eyes filled with tears and he looked away. I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," Alexander said gently. Just think about it. The offer stands whenever you're ready." As he left the bar that night, Alexander felt a glimmer of hope. He had taken the first step toward helping Thomas, and by extension, Liam. But he knew the road to redemption would be long and difficult, and he could only hope that Thomas would seize the opportunity. Over the next few weeks, Alexander kept a close eye on Thomas and Liam. He made sure to provide Thomas with the support he needed, from a stable job to counseling sessions. Slowly but surely, Thomas began to change. The anger and despair that had consumed him started to fade, replaced by a sense of purpose and hope. One afternoon, Alexander received a call from Thomas. "Mr. Grant," Thomas said, his voice filled with gratitude. "I don't know how to thank you. You've given me a second chance, and I promise I won't let you down." Alexander smiled. "You don't have to thank me, Thomas. Just take care of yourself and Liam. That's all the thanks I need." As the days passed, Alexander noticed a change in Liam as well. The boy seemed happier, more at ease. His drawings became more vibrant, filled with color and life. It was as if a weight had been lifted off his small shoulders. One day, as they sat under the weeping willow, Liam turned to Alexander with a shy smile. "Thank you," he said softly, "for everything." Alexander's heart swelled with emotion. "You're welcome, Liam. I'm just glad I could help." The boy hesitated, then asked, Do you think my mom would be proud of me?" Alexander placed a hand on Liam's shoulder, his voice gentle but firm. "I know she would, Liam. You're a brave, kind, and talented boy. She would be so proud of the person you're becoming." Tears filled Liam's eyes, but this time they were tears of joy. "Thank you," he whispered. As they sat there, surrounded by the quiet beauty of the cemetery, Alexander felt a sense of peace he hadn't known in years. He had started this journey hoping to help Liam, but in the process he had found healing for himself as well. The bond they had formed was a testament to the power of human connection, a reminder that even in the darkest times, there is always hope. Months passed, and the changes in Thomas and Liam's lives became more evident. Thomas had fully embraced his new job and was thriving in his role. The counseling sessions had helped him confront his grief and guilt, and he was slowly rebuilding his relationship with Liam. The boy, in turn, was flourishing. His grades improved, and he even joined an art class at school, where his talent began to shine. One crisp autumn afternoon, Alexander received an invitation to dinner at Thomas and Liam's home. He accepted without hesitation, curious to see how far they had come. When he arrived, he was greeted by a warm and welcoming atmosphere. The small apartment was modest but cozy, filled with the scent of homemade food and the sound of laughter. Thomas welcomed him with a firm handshake and a grateful smile, while Liam beamed with excitement. "Mr. Grant," Liam exclaimed, pulling him toward the dining table. "We made your favorite, spaghetti and meatballs." Alexander chuckled, touched by the gesture. "You remembered." As they sat down to eat, the conversation flowed easily. Thomas shared stories of his progress at work, while Liam proudly showed off his latest drawings. The bond between father and son was palpable, a testament to the healing they had both undergone. After dinner, Liam excused himself to work on a school project, leaving Alexander and Thomas alone in the living room. Thomas turned to Alexander, his expression serious but grateful. "I don't know how to thank you," Thomas said, his voice thick with emotion. "You've given us a second chance at life. I don't think I'll ever be able to repay you." Alexander shook his head. "You don't have to repay me, Thomas. Seeing you and Liam happy is all the reward I need." Thomas nodded, his eyes glistening. "You've done so much for us. I just hope one day I can pay it forward, help someone else the way you've helped us." Alexander smiled. "That's the best way to honor the help you've received, by helping others in turn." As the evening drew to a close, Alexander felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He had started this journey hoping to ease his own pain, but in the process he had found something far greater, a renewed sense of purpose, and the joy of making a difference in someone else's life. Before he left, Liam handed him a small, carefully wrapped package. "This is for you," the boy said shyly. Alexander unwrapped it to find a beautifully framed drawing of Emily's grave under the weeping willow, with two figures sitting on the bench, Alexander and Liam. The detail was exquisite and the emotion behind it was palpable. "Liam, this is incredible," Alexander said, his voice choked with emotion. "Thank you." Liam smiled, his eyes shining. "You're family now, Mr. Grant. I wanted you to have something to remember us by." Alexander pulled the boy into a tight hug, his heart overflowing with gratitude. "I'll treasure this forever," he whispered. As he drove home that night, Alexander felt a profound sense of peace. The journey had been long and difficult, but it had led him to a place of healing and connection. He had lost Emily, but in Liam and Thomas, he had found a new family. A reminder that even in the face of loss, love and hope could prevail. And so, under the watchful gaze of the weeping willow, a new chapter began. One filled with redemption, connection, and the enduring power of the human spirit.
Subscribe and press the bell icon so that you never miss the amazing video.